Hello and welcome back. This is Gina coming to you live in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And we are on video 2. So we're on part 2 of today. I actually forgot some watercolor paper and I ran home to get it, but it left me time. Christine was just being dropped off at home and I was able to help her get in the house and help her get some food and all of that good stuff. So we got her all settled in, leg elevated, and hopefully she'll rest now. And we had one card to finish up. So like I said, I ran home, got watercolor paper. So we're here to do our final card with the Layers of Beauty bundle. And that would include the masks, stamps, and dies. So let's get started. If you're coming on, say hi. Tell me where you're coming from. I'm going to make sure I am where I need to be. Looks like I'm live. So here we go. All right. So for our final card of this, we're doing watercoloring. And of course, I had to do some oranges because, well, you all know I love orange. So here is our card. All right, so in this oh my goodness, where did I put the watercolor paper? Have a piece of watercolor paper. Now when you're watercoloring, I would suggest using watercolor paper. I find that you get the best results with watercolor paper. We used to have some shimmer white paper and I really like to do that, but they no longer carry that. So we've moved on to this, and the watercolor paper has a little bit of texture to it. So it gives that nice little bit of texture to your project. So the first thing we always want to do, I should say, we're embossing. We're going to heat emboss, and the first thing you always want to do is use your embossing buddy and run over your paper with this. What this does is takes away any oils. Sometimes our fingers, even though they are clean, we have natural oils in our hands. So it's good to get that off. If we have any oils on our hands and leave spots, the powder will want to stick there. So this is an easy way to make sure that the powder sticks where we want it to, and that's where we put the ink. We're going to bring in our large stamp again, ink it up with Versamark. Now Versamark is a clear ink, so you don't really see it when you're doing it on white. Now, you can use Versamark ink and use it on like crumb cake or any other color, and it will give it a tone-on-tone image, which can be really pretty also. Oops, let's hope. You know what, we're gonna flip this over because I dropped it and I don't want to leave any weird spots in my thing. So we're gonna just flip it over. We're going to do it again. I'm going to ink it up. Make sure I have it inked up good. It's such a large stamp that I lost my grip. And I don't need to use the whole paper. But it was just easier this way. And make sure that when you are using this stamp, you press firmly all over. Number one, because it is a large stamp and it's very easily, you can miss a spot. Number two, watercolor paper has texture to it. So you do have to press a little bit firmer than you would on smooth cardstock. Okay, so we're gonna lift this up. That to the side, and we're going to use our white embossing powder and sprinkle it on our image. And it looks like I did a good job, so I don't have any powder where I don't want it. A little hair there as a souvenir. Okay. Then we're going to bring in our heat tool, and it's going to be a little hard to see. So for those of you who have never embossed, it's going to be a little hard to see because I'm doing it on white, but you can see in the light, there is my image. Now when we heat this up, the powder actually melts and will become shiny. And you want to make sure that you have that shininess in there. And a lot of times I will heat it up in front of and behind the paper. Sometimes when you heat your paper up, it wants to curl and bend. So I just go back and forth. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to tell, maybe this way easier, but you're gonna start seeing it turn shiny. And when it turns shiny and it's all melted, or that shows us that it's all melted, okay, so just like that. Oh. Get that turned off. Okay, and I don't know if you can see that better now in the light. You can see a little bit of a sheen. Okay, now I like, we have aqua painters, and I do like to use them. If you don't have aqua painters, that's okay. You can use a paintbrush. And I like to put water also in a bowl. This is just a little kid's bowl that I had for my kids when they were younger. And I do have my aqua painter full. And with your aqua painter, in order to use it, if you've never used one before, all you have to do is squeeze it and water will drip through. Okay? But I oftentimes, when I watercolor, I want to control my water saturation a little bit more. So I tend to use a little bit like this so I don't get a full dot. I don't always want a full dot. So I use everything this way too. So I like to let my water kind of color for me. So the easiest way that I find that I like to do that, first when I do my inking, I'm going to bring in my 3 ink pads. I'm using Highland Heather, Balmy Blue, and Pumpkin Pie, which it looks like I forgot that also. Oh goodness. So we're gonna bring in, looks like Petal Pink maybe. It has not been my day today. I have forgotten a lot of things. So we're gonna bring in Petal Pink. And what I do, and there's 2 ways you can do this. You can close your ink pads, push them harder in the center, and it will leave a pool of ink here. Like I said in my previous video, I don't care for that because sometimes we get too much water in here, and if you close your ink pad, that water goes into your ink pad and it dilutes your color. So Or you have that all in here and sometimes you have too much. So you take a paper towel or whatever, or baby wipe, and you kind of wipe it out to clean it, because sometimes it'll run too much and it'll make a mess. And sometimes those fibers will stay in this tray and then those fibers transfer into your ink pad. So the way I like to do it is I take my clear blocks and I ink it up with some ink. So like I said, here's my petal pink. Here's my Calypso Coral. And we're going to do that with all 4 of our colors. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I use this is one of my kids' like burp rags or bibs, whatever, or I have a hand towel. Sometimes I use paper towel, but sometimes paper towel will have fibers. So sometimes I will not use paper towel for that fact. So now my aqua painter is wet already, but I dipped it in anyways. And I'm just going to take one of my flowers and fill it in with water. Just to get some moisture on here. This will allow the color then to do the work. So now I'm going to stick my aqua painter into my block and I'm just going to tap. See how that just took? I'm going to make this a little bit closer for you guys, hopefully. I'll move this up. That water took and spread all on its own, and that's kind of what you want. That gives it that nice, natural watercoloring kind of look, and it's so easy to do that. Now, if it starts to dry a little bit, I'll just add a little more water, whether squeezing my aqua painter or putting it in my dish. And the nice thing with the embossing is it doesn't stick to your embossing. So now I'm going to clean it off. I squeeze water through and I wipe it on my little bib here and I wet it again, take some off, and now I'm adding some of my petal pink. Now, the colors that I used were pumpkin pie and, or not pumpkin pie, peach pie. And Calypso Coral in my original card, but today's the day. I seem to have forgotten a lot of stuff, so I am going with the flow here. And where I want to add a little more depth and dimension, I just go through and tap. I'm not really coloring per se, I'm just tapping in color and letting the water, like I said before, letting the water do the work for me. Now, if you were doing an image that, you know, you were doing more freehand, you wouldn't be able to just kind of let the water necessarily do the whole shape. You'd have to shape it a little bit first. But because we have the embossing in there, it holds the water kind of in its place. So I'm going to clean it off again. And I'm going to add water to my second rose. So I just squeeze some water out of my aqua painter. And I'm spreading it around on this floral image. And it looks like I forgot to do a leaf over here, so And if you want more color and more saturation, a lot of time you can add more color, but sometimes it's better to let it just dry, let your watercoloring dry, and go back and add a little more color when you see it dry, because sometimes when it dries it looks completely different than it does when it's wet. Okay, so now I've wet that big rose, and look at, I'm just tapping it in there and it's spreading, and that's fine. That's what I want it to do. And when you have it wet like this and you're just tapping and you're going through and adding color after color, it allows those colors to just blend a little more seamlessly also. And basically when I am to clean my brush up, I am just squeezing out water. Out of my aqua painter and letting it clean itself. And I also try to wipe my block off before I dip it back in the ink. You can just keep adding water where you need to. And as far as how I color things, I just kind of imagine what a two-toned floral arrangement would look like. And I go from there. You know, putting light spots and dark spots. Where would shadows be? Oh, we have one more rose to do here. In watercoloring too, you also want to kind of go step by step. You don't want to necessarily, you know, I'm kind of doing all of these colors, then I'll go through and do the green. That way they don't bleed together by having water kind of overlap and carry it all over. If I were to wet all of this, these orange colors might bleed into where the leaves are, and then I might not be as happy with my look. Now, if you ever get a spot where you're just like, ugh, I don't know, this seems too dark, you can always take and make it lighter by adding more water to it. Now I'm going to go through and I'm just going to add a little bit. more darkness kind of around here. Add a little bit more water. See, now I got a little too much water there, but that's okay. All I have to do is do that and it lifts it right up. Watercoloring can be very forgiving. And remember, with watercolor, we're not looking for, let's say, specific lines or things like that. Watercolor, it flows. It doesn't just straight lines or whatever. So you don't have to be, that's the great thing with this. You don't have to be perfect with it. Like I said, the water will do a lot of the work for you. Now, if you want more definition and you don't want it so blended, use less water. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm gonna wipe this off, clear up my brushes. And two, just like the masks, all you have to do is rinse these blocks off and they're clean. Now I'm gonna use, where'd my granny apple go? My granny apple, and I'm gonna do my leaves. Now I've cleaned off my brush. You guys can see, oh, you guys can't see that on screen, sorry. All I do when I clean is I just squeeze my brush, or I dip it in my little water bowl over here, and then wipe it off on my little towel. Bring in a block, ink it up. And this is a way to, like I said, keep your ink pads just a little bit cleaner. I got a little too much water, so it's doing a little bit of bleeding. So then I just tapped it. Now you can go through and just color it directly. You don't have to water your paper, but I do. I like having it kind of just be a little more natural, a little more flowing. And like I said, to add dark, I just go through and add more. You could solid color it. You don't have to do this the way that I'm doing. This is just the way that I do it. And I think this creates dimension. You guys are getting a lot of me today. Which stamp set did I use? I am using the Layers of Beauty bundle. So this has the masks in it and the stamp set. Let me see. I must have put that aside, Margaret, but it's the Layers of Beauty bundle, and it comes with mask, dies, and oh, here it is. Here we go. So it's this. It's a really big stamp, so you need an F block to use it. But this is what I used. I have ink all over my fingers. Let's see if I can keep it off of places it doesn't belong. So once again, if I have too much ink, I just go through and tap it, or too much ink, too much water. I just go through and tap it. Now, yes, this is a little tedious if you don't like to color. It is tedious, but it's really worth it. You get a really beautiful look when you watercolor that you don't get any other way coloring. And like I said too, watercoloring can be a little forgiving because you can just pick it up with some water if you've made a mistake or you don't like something, and you can lighten it or darken it. And don't forget to check out the first video I did. That video shows the other 3 cards that I did with this set. And I will admit, it's a little hard to see. Thank goodness for the shininess of it. Is a little bit hard to see the embossing embossed area, I should say, on here because it's white on white. You could also, if you didn't have white, you could use clear also because you're using white paper, and that would give you the same look too, because it would when you use clear, it'll show the color that's behind it. So if you had pink paper and you put clear over it, it's going to show pink through, and so on. So depending what okay, so I think that is most of our green. Now I'm going to go through and color our daisies. And sometimes I add just a little bit of water too to the block to color things also. And because this one is so, the daisies are a little bit smaller in here, I'm just taking and putting ink directly on there. versus wetting it and then putting but by adding light spots and dark spots, you get dimension. That's how you create dimension with watercolor. It looks like I have maybe one little green spot to do yet. And we'll bring in some yellow. And see, I have some in my ink pad here. You can see that. So that is another option too. And I'm just coloring the center of these flowers. Okay. So, oh, I found a little more green. That's the trouble with white on white. You kind of miss spots, but then you can go back. And I'm going to show you something in just a moment. I think I've got it all. Now, it looks pretty just the way it is, but I feel like I want things to pop just a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my balmy blue and kind of create sky behind it. And that'll let that embossing powder, or the embossed areas, really stand out. And I'm just doing a really light coat. Just doing a light wash around everything. And granted, we are going to die cut this, so, you know, we're not going to see a lot of this, but I just wanted you guys to see this like this, so you could see the difference that the blue makes, because I really feel like it helps this whole image pop. And remember too, when you've got embossed here, you can ink, you can go right over the top of it, the embossed parts. And it doesn't stain. I just want to show you this half. See how you can see the squigglies more and the outline of the leaves a little bit more? That's what I'm just trying to get it to pop just a little bit more. And I think it helps get our colors to stand out even more. And if I feel the blue is getting too heavy, I just add a little more water. Okay, so that's what we did. Welcome back, Jean. Thank you for joining me again. And if it's running anywhere, like I said, I always just pick it up, with my cloth. Now you do have to be careful. If you've got a lot of color on your cloth, it will transfer on there. So if you don't want blue, let's say, on top of your yellow, you do have to be a little careful with that. I'm going to zoom back out. So there we go. There's our image. And now all I have to do is I'm going to rinse these off in my little container here. And they'll be clean just like that. It does make a little bit of a mess if you are like me. I don't mind getting my hands a little inky. And then what I'll do is when I get home, I'll just throw this little bib in the wash and it'll be ready to go next time. Okay, so this is all done, but it's still wet. So I'm gonna actually take my heat tool and I'm gonna dry it because we want this dry when we cut it. Otherwise it might not cut right. And every time you do something like this, your watercoloring is gonna look different. You'll never be able to get them both exactly the same. Now, the nice thing too, sometimes when you do a watercolor wash, you have a lot of water on there. You can actually take your heat tool and move the watercoloring around and give it a cool look too. And anytime you're using water or anything like that, your paper will tend to curl. Now there's a couple options. You can just let it air dry and then lay a book on top of it. In this case, I'm going to dry it from both ends. You'll actually see, I don't know how well you'll see that in the video, but the paper will actually go back and forth and you'll have a little bit of movement, and that'll help it from curling so much. And it's feeling pretty good. Okay. So we have that. We're going to bring in our embossing machine here. And we're going to cut this out. We're going to use two different dies to cut this out. One's the large one. It looks like I've got it lined up pretty well, so we'll send it through. The heat gun does not ruin the embossing. Now, what can happen with the heat gun? One, you can burn your fingers, so you want to make sure you keep your fingers away. We do have a toolkit that has a little bit of tweezers in it, and you can use that. The other thing is you can burn your paper. So if you leave it on too long or you leave the heat gun too close, it can burn your paper. So you do want to be careful of that. You don't want to set any paper on fire. Now, like I said, once you cut this out, you don't see as much of that blue. You do see it. And once we put it on the card, we don't see it, but I just feel like it gave it a little something extra, and I could see my embossing powder just a little bit more. So we've used the big die to cut this out. Now there is another die in here, and it's this die here. And this, sorry, I tend to start on the right side always when I cut. This cuts out this larger flower here. Okay, so we're going to line that up the best we can here. Now, I'm not sure if it makes a difference if you cut the large one out first and then do the little one. I don't know that there's a difference. I guess I just did it. This was easier for me to do, so this is the way I did it. And it was easier to do it once it was colored because I could see my lines a little bit better. Okay, so now we have this cut like this. So now we have two pieces out of here. Move this out of the way. So now it's time to put our card together. So this is the fun part. So we have multiple pieces here. This is my inside piece. And we're going with Happy Anniversary. But there's not, I don't have another stamp set here that I may, let's see, may all my wishes come to you, or have a blessed day. We'll do that. We'll do have a blessed day. And we're going to ink that up in Calypso Coral. And then there is a little flower stamp in here. And I am going to use Memento, and we're going to arch this kind of over like that, and then we'll color that in. Now I'm just going to use my Wink of Stella here and pick up a little bit of ink out of the corner. Oh, except I don't want to use Calypso. I actually want to use Highland Heather because I think that'll look really pretty with the coral sentiment. Now, should you be dipping your Wink of Stella in here? Probably not, but I don't usually stick my stamps in the ink pad in the corners, so I don't mind doing that once in a while. Would I do it all the time? No. What would have been better is if I had left it on the blocks and used it right off the blocks. That would have been a better choice, but completely up to you. Nice thing about the Wink of Stella is it doesn't really add water to your ink pads, so Now it does have a little alcohol in here, but I've not had it yet ruin my cards, so I'm going with it. Okay, make sure to wipe it off. Bring in a little bit of yellow. And just like when we watercolor, I can take and grab a darker spot and add some darkness in here. So you get a little bit of a watercolor effect, okay? And then we're going to bring our sentiment in. And we're going to do happy anniversary. And ink that up in our Calypso Coral. Okay, so we're gonna adhere this to our piece of Calypso Coral. And this is our peach pie. Gotta love these colors together. I do. Okay, so now we have a piece of coral. And remember to save paper. You can cut things out of your mats because we're gonna cover this up so you won't even know that I have a hole back here. We're gonna take a piece of balmy blue and a piece of vellum that I've embossed. I wanted a subtle blue hint. I felt like it was too blue when I had it on there, so I put vellum over the top. Now they did discontinue vellum. Sad, sad day. I'm so sad that they did that. And I'm not worried about where I put my adhesive in the middle of the card because we're going to be covering that up. So you won't see your adhesive. Now the other thing you want to make sure is this has little words on it. So you want to make sure when you put your card together that your letters aren't upside down. I may or may not have done that before, so, you know. Okay, and adhere this to a piece of Calypso. And I have a few ends here that obviously did not cut well, so I'm just going to take my scissors along the edges there and cut that. Okay, adhere this to the base of our card. Oh, I just love these colors together. They're so pretty. Okay, now we're going to take our floral piece, put some dimensionals on the back. And we're going to lay it like that on our card. So you have this big open space, and that's okay because we are going to cover that with our label. And like I always say, I use tear and tape to help adhere my ribbon. And we're just going to weave it back and forth. Nice thing about this new In Color ribbon is it's really nice and pliable, so it works really well when tying bows and just working with it in general. And it does some cool fraying, so I haven't frayed it yet. I like to do that with my ribbon, but I'm sure that's to come. We'll put a few more dimensionals. On the back here. And I do put it over my ribbon a little bit just to help adhere the ribbon. So you've got a little bit of gap, and that's okay. There's going to be a little bit that isn't completely covered, and that's okay. We're going to work on covering the top piece here. And this little gap, there's a little gap yet right here. That's where we're going to put our rose. And I'm actually going to pop him up also. And then we're just going to tuck him in. Maybe I need to move this over just a little bit. Like so. Center our label, and then I think I packed up my butterflies already, so then you would add your little butterflies. So here is our watercolor card using the Layers of Beauty set. So this is the difference. I used Peach Pie and Calypso Coral here, and I used Calypso Coral and Petal Pink here because I forgot my Peach Pie. So that is the difference, and then I added these brushed butterflies, and I think that is just such a lovely touch. So here are the 4 cards that I created today. The first 3 cards were done in the first video, and this was the final card that we did using the watercolor. So this is part 2 video. So here we used our blends, and we used Poppy Parade of Flirty Flamingo, Little Shaded Spruce. We also colored the edge of our label. This one was using the mask, and we used Bubble Bath and Pretty in Pink, Soft Seafoam, a little Lemon Lolly, added a few butterflies, and did a 3-layer panel look. And then for our final card, we used some purples, Fresh Freesia and Petunia Pop. And this was a nice, so these 2 used the masks and they used ink, this used blends, and this used watercolor. So we have 4 different techniques. Did some heat embossing, left some just stamped on here and popped some up, die cut. There are so many possibilities with this set. It's pretty amazing what you can do. And I do believe that if you wanted to emboss this with embossing paste, I feel that you just have to make sure that you have enough time to dry your layers, because you would need to do it in steps, and that's why I chose not to do a video on it. I might create a card at home and post it on my Facebook page, but I decided not to do that for a video because I really wanted to make sure that I think each layer you're going to have to dry separately, so that's why I didn't do any embossing paste. Now, another thing you could do is use watercolor pencils and color your image with watercolor pencils. The other thing you could do too is lay your mask down and color it with a watercoloring pen, or use watercolor pencils and then use your blender pen to blend it out from there. So there are a lot of possibilities and different things you could do with this. So I encourage you to play and have fun. You can still get these kits. These kits are $20 plus shipping. These kits will be available till May 18th. So you have until the 18th to get your orders. I'll cut them and send them out. For those of you who have already ordered, your kits will go out today, along with, I think I had 5 kits that we waited till May 1st, and then I cut them and put them all together. Those kits are all going out today also. And what do I have coming up? I have Stamp a Stack next weekend, the 19th. We're going to be using the Wildleaf Florals, or flowers. That's coming up. We have a scrapbook class coming up shortly after that, so that must be that Wednesday, so I don't know if that's the 23rd. Whatever that Wednesday is, we will be featuring the airplane set and the morning create, which is, I think it's that Monday after Stamp a Stack, so that might be the 20th. I had to move that. That's usually the last Monday of the month, but I had to move that with it being the holiday week. And that one we're going to feature 3 guide cards for the men in our lives, with Father's Day coming up and birthday cards and things like that. So that's what I have coming up for the month of May yet. Let's see, do I have anything else to share with you guys? I think that's it. I think I covered everything else in my other videos, so please check both videos out. And as always, if you guys need to contact me, or if you want to order kits, I have to sneeze. Maybe not. You can always reach me on my Facebook page at Glitter and Ink with Gina. Please go there, follow and like there, and share my videos. I really appreciate your support, and by you doing that, it allows me to bring you more great videos. So when you do that, like I said, don't forget to go to Glitter and Ink and follow me there. My Facebook page is where I have the most updates. So if you need updates or a time of a class change or what I have coming up in classes, that is posted on my Glitter and Ink page. So that is the best way to see things. You can also reach out to me by email, ginaalbulo@gmail.com. Feel free if you have any questions about today's videos or questions about any of the techniques. I am always here to help you. So if you need answers, please feel free to reach out to me or Christine, but Christine can't really help you with my classes. She doesn't know what I did, so it's best to reach out for me. But you know, if you have general stamping questions, either one of us can help you out. And if I can help anyone out while Christine is laid up, please let me know and I'll make sure she gets the messages or whatever. So thank you guys for joining me once again. Margaret, Jean, have a great day. And I will see you guys next weekend. But in the meantime, have a wonderful Mother's Day weekend. Enjoy some time with family.